my own family, laughed at my outfit, at the wedding, until the designer tag made every single guest shut up. Look at her dress. Is that what she thinks is appropriate for a wedding? My own daughter's voice cut through the ambient chatter of the reception hall, deliberately loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I froze midway across the room, my champagne flute trembling slightly in my hand as a wave of heat rushed to my face. The designer dress that had arrived just yesterday, the centerpiece of my most successful brand partnership to date, suddenly felt heavy on my shoulders. I watched as my daughter Madison leaned in to whisper something to my son-in-law and his mother, all three of them erupting in poorly concealed laughter while staring directly at me. At 64 years old, with over 2 million followers and a verified account, I had somehow convinced myself that my newfound success would finally earn their respect. But standing there, being openly mocked at my own granddaughter's wedding by the family who should have been proudest of me, I realized that some wounds run deeper than any amount of internet fame could heal. What they didn't know was that the elegant sapphire silk dress they were ridiculing had been personally selected by Vera Wang herself for her new Ageless Beauty campaign, and I was about to show them all exactly who they were laughing at. 3 years ago, I couldn't have imagined being here. My husband Robert's sudden heart attack had left me alone in our two-large house in Vermont, with nothing but memories and silence. For 42 years, I had been Elaine Morgan, wife, mother, elementary school librarian. My identity had always been tied to others: Robert's wife, Madison, and Peter's mother, later Sophia and Emma's grandmother. After Robert died, I became invisible, not just to society. That kind of invisibility happens to most women after 50, but even to my own children. Madison stopped calling except to check if I was handling things okay, her tone always suggesting she expected me to crumble at any moment. Peter, my son who lived in Seattle, reduced our relationship to perfunctory monthly calls that rarely lasted more than 5 minutes. Neither seemed to consider that I might be capable of more than just existing in the aftermath of widowhood. I still remember the day everything changed. It was raining, a cold April downpour that matched my mood. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by photo albums I'd been organizing, a project I'd started to fill the endless empty hours. I found myself lingering over a photograph from 1978, me at 21 in a peasant blouse and high-waisted jeans, my dark hair flowing down to my waist, standing proudly in front of the vintage clothing store where I worked before meeting Robert. Back then, I'd dreamed of fashion school. I sketched designs on napkins and in notebooks, saved every issue of Vogue, and spent weekends scouring thrift stores for unique pieces I could modify. But then came marriage, children, and the comfortable predictability of suburban life. My sketchbooks were stored away, and eventually, I stopped missing them. Looking at that young woman in the photograph, I barely recognized myself. What had happened to that girl with dreams? Where had she gone? On an impulse, I reached for my iPad, a Christmas gift from Peter that he'd set up for me but that I rarely used beyond occasional FaceTime calls with the grandchildren. I opened the browser and typed fashion blogs for women over 60. What began as idle curiosity quickly became an obsession. I discovered a world of women refusing to disappear, claiming space in an industry that had long ignored them. Women with silver hair and laugh lines modeling clothes with a confidence I'd forgotten existed. I stayed up until 3 a.m., jumping from blog to blog, Instagram account to Instagram account, mesmerized. The next morning, I walked into my closet and really looked at my clothes for the first time in years. Shapeless cardigans, elastic waist pants, sensible shoes, a uniform of invisibility. That afternoon, I drove to the nearest mall with a determination I hadn't felt in decades. I didn't know it then, but that was the first step toward becoming Style with Elaine. My initial Instagram post was almost comical in its awkwardness. I propped my phone against a stack of books on my dresser, set the timer, and rushed to pose in front of my bedroom mirror wearing a new outfit I'd purchased, wide-legged linen pants and a structured blazer in a shade of teal that made my gray eyes pop. The lighting was terrible, my smile stiff, but I posted it anyway with a caption that read simply, "Starting over at 61, better never too late." That post got 3 likes, all from random accounts that probably liked everything they saw, but something about seeing myself there on the screen, taking up space, declaring my existence, was intoxicating. I posted again the next day, and the day after that. I learned through trial and error. Gradually, I figured out better lighting, more flattering angles. I researched hashtags and posting times. I watched YouTube tutorials about Instagram growth strategies, taking notes as diligently as I had during my college days. Every night, I responded to comments and followed accounts that inspired me. 6 months in, I had 800 followers. Nothing remarkable, but each one felt like a personal victory. My content expanded beyond outfit posts. I shared stories about Robert, about raising children, about rediscovering myself. I posted book recommendations and recipes alongside fashion advice. I was building something that was uniquely mine. The first brand partnership came unexpectedly. A small company selling handcrafted jewelry reached out offering to send me a piece in exchange for a post. The silver pendant arrived in a velvet box, with a handwritten note thanking me for my authentic content. I wore that pendant in my next 10 posts, proudly tagging the brand each time. By my 1-year Instagram-versary, I had 22,000 followers. Small businesses regularly sent products, and I'd started earning modest amounts from affiliate links. I reinvested every penny into better equipment, a ring light, a tripod with a remote, eventually a decent camera to supplement my phone photography. But my family remained skeptical. "Mom, you're not seriously spending your retirement on clothes for Instagram, are you?" Madison asked during one of her occasional visits, her tone somewhere between amusement and concern. "It's not just a hobby, Madison," I tried to explain. "I'm building something here. At your age? Come on, Mom." She laughed, patting my hand in that patronizing way that made me feel like the child rather than the parent. "It's cute that you're keeping busy, but let's be realistic." Peter was more blunt during our monthly call. "Just be careful not to get scammed, Mom. The internet is full of people taking advantage of seniors." Seniors. The word stung. In their eyes, I had an expiration date. Not just on my relevance, but on my capacity to grow, to create, to matter. What they didn't see were the messages I received daily from women thanking me for inspiring them. They didn't see me carefully analyzing my engagement metrics, strategizing content calendars, negotiating rates with increasingly prominent brands. They didn't see me staying up late researching fashion weeks and trends, connecting with other content creators, building a community. The breakthrough came 18 months into my journey. A video I posted about embracing my natural gray hair after decades of coloring went viral, accumulating over 2 million views in a week. My follower count jumped from 60,000 to 300,000 in 10 days. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded with partnership offers from mainstream brands. The first major contract I signed was with a luxury skincare brand known for its age-positive marketing. They paid me $5,000 for 3 dedicated posts and story mentions, more than I made in a month as a librarian. I remembered staring at the contract in disbelief, Robert's voice echoing in my mind. "You always had an eye for beauty, Ellie. You should have done something with it. Maybe it wasn't too late after all." As my platform grew, so did my confidence. I hired Emma, my 25-year-old granddaughter, as my part-time assistant to help manage the business aspects. Unlike her mother, Emma saw my work as legitimate from the start. With a marketing degree and a genuine appreciation for what I was creating, she became my greatest ally. "Grandma, do you realize how revolutionary what you're doing is?" she asked one afternoon, while helping me organize an upcoming campaign. "You've built a 6-figure business from scratch in your 60s. Do you know how rare that is?" I hadn't thought of it that way. I was just following an unexpected passion, filling the void Robert's death had left with something that made me feel alive again. But Emma was right. I had built something valuable, not just for myself, but for the community of women who saw themselves reflected in my content. By the time my follower count crossed the 1 million mark, my life had transformed completely. I moved from the house in Vermont to a light-filled apartment in Boston to be closer to Emma. My days were structured around content creation, brand meetings, and community engagement. I traveled for sponsored events, New York, Los Angeles, once even to Paris for Fashion Week, where I sat front row at several shows, wearing outfits sent by designers eager for me to be photographed in their pieces. Major publications wrote features about me, the librarian who became a style icon at 63, breaking age barriers, meet the grandmother influencing fashion's new direction. My story resonated because it challenged expectations about what was possible for women in their later years. Through it all, my relationship with Madison remained strained. She viewed my success with a mixture of disbelief and disdain, referring to my work as my internet thing whenever it came up. Peter was marginally more supportive after Emma explained how much I was earning, but his interest seemed primarily financial, suggesting investment strategies rather than expressing genuine pride in what I'd accomplished. Neither of them followed my account. Neither of them understood that I wasn't just posting pictures. I was reclaiming the passion and purpose I'd set aside decades ago to be the kind of mother and wife I thought I needed to be. When my granddaughter Sophia got engaged, I was thrilled. Despite the tension with Madison, Sophia and I had always been close, and she had been supportive of my new career from the beginning. She occasionally appeared in my content, and our grandmother-granddaughter style swaps were among my most popular posts. "Of course I want you at my wedding, Grandma," Sophia said when I called to congratulate her. "And not just as my grandmother, but as Style with Elaine, too. You've inspired me to be brave in my own life." Her words meant everything to me. At least someone in my family saw me fully. As the wedding approached, I received an unexpected email from Vera Wang's team. The legendary designer was launching a new ageless beauty campaign featuring women over 60 who exemplified style and reinvention. They wanted me as one of the 5 faces of the campaign, which would include wearing a custom Vera Wang design to a high-profile event of my choosing. When I mentioned that my granddaughter's wedding was coming up, the representative was ecstatic. "Perfect timing. We'll create something appropriate, but statement-making. Something that honors your relationship with Sophia while showcasing your personal style." The opportunity was beyond anything I could have imagined for myself 3 years earlier. I signed the contract immediately, agreeing to exclusive social media coverage of the design process, fitting sessions, and the final reveal at the wedding. The compensation was substantial, the largest single payment I'd ever received for a partnership. I told only Emma and Sophia about the collaboration, swearing them to secrecy. Emma helped coordinate the logistics for the remote fittings and content requirements, while Sophia was simply excited that her wedding would feature a Vera Wang original, even if not on the bride. Madison took charge of the wedding planning, barely consulting Sophia, and certainly not me. When the invitation arrived specifying formal attire, I smiled knowing what was coming. The dress arrived 3 days before the wedding, delivered to my hotel room in a garment bag bearing the designer's name. When I unzipped it, I gasped. The sapphire blue silk crepe gown was understated yet unmistakably high fashion, with architectural details that nodded to my preference for structured silhouettes. The neckline was modest but interesting, the waist defined, the length appropriate. It was the perfect balance, respectful of the occasion while still distinctly me. The morning of the wedding, as I prepared in my hotel room, I felt a familiar mixture of excitement and anxiety. The professional hair and makeup team Vera Wang had arranged arrived at 9 a.m., transforming me into the polished version of myself that my followers recognized. As part of the agreement, Emma documented the process for my Instagram stories, capturing my genuine reactions. "How do you feel?" she asked, phone camera trained on me as I stood before the mirror in the completed ensemble. I searched for the right words. "I feel seen." We arrived at the venue an hour before the ceremony, as requested in Madison's meticulously detailed itinerary. The Fairmont Copley Plaza in Boston was breathtaking, the ballroom transformed with white flowers and crystal chandeliers. I spotted Madison immediately, directing staff and family members with military precision. Her eyes landed on me, widening slightly before narrowing into a familiar look of disapproval. She excused herself from her conversation and made her way toward me, her burgundy mother-of-the-bride dress rustling as she moved. "Mom," she said, her voice tight. "What are you wearing?" I smoothed my hands over the rich fabric. "My outfit for Sophia's wedding. Do you like it? It's a bit much, don't you think? This is Sophia's day, not another photo opportunity for your followers." The comment stung, but I had anticipated something like this. I chose this to honor Sophia's special day. She's seen it and loves it. Madison's lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, it's too late to change now. Just try not to draw too much attention to yourself. And please don't spend the whole day taking selfies." Before I could respond, she was called away to address some crisis with the flower arrangements. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this day wasn't about Madison or me. It was about Sophia. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophia looked radiant, and the love between her and James was palpable. I sat in the front row, conscious of the occasional glances from guests who recognized me from social media or press coverage. I noticed Madison's friends whispering, their eyes darting toward me, then away when I looked in their direction. It was during the reception that things escalated. I was making my way to the bar when I overheard Madison's voice, deliberately louder than necessary. "Look at her dress. Is that what she thinks is appropriate for a wedding?" I froze, my champagne flute trembling slightly as I turned to see Madison leaning toward her husband and his mother, all three looking directly at me. Their laughter felt like a physical blow. "Trying a bit hard, isn't she?" her mother-in-law stage whispered. "At her age, that's my mom," Madison replied with an exaggerated sigh. "Everything's content now. Everything's for the followers. I'm surprised she hasn't set up a ring light in the middle of the dance floor." A few nearby guests looked uncomfortable, others curious, some amused. The moment stretched painfully as I stood there, exposed and ridiculed by my own daughter. Then a hand touched my elbow gently. "Ms. Morgan, I'm Alessandra from Vogue. We spoke via email about capturing some moments tonight for the Vera Wang feature." The young woman beside me spoke clearly, her press credential hanging around her neck. "The lighting in here is perfect for highlighting the couture details of your gown. Would you mind if we took a few photographs by the staircase?" The shift in the room was immediate and palpable. Conversation stuttered to a halt. Madison's smug expression froze, then crumbled into confusion. "Vera Wang?" someone nearby whispered audibly. Alessandra continued professionally. "Ms. Wang was particularly proud of the architectural elements in this piece. She mentioned you were one of her favorite collaborators for the Ageless Beauty collection." I found my voice at last. "Of course, I'd be happy to." As we walked toward the staircase, I heard the unmistakable sound of whispers spreading like wildfire throughout the reception hall. From the corner of my eye, I saw Madison standing perfectly still, her face drained of color. The photographer directed me naturally, capturing the dress from various angles while asking questions about my experience working with Vera Wang. I answered easily, finding strength in the familiar rhythm of a professional content creation session. Guests began to gather at a respectful distance, watching the impromptu photo shoot with undisguised interest. Among them was the mother-in-law who had been laughing at me minutes earlier, her expression now a mixture of embarrassment and awe. When we finished, Alessandra thanked me and confirmed she had everything needed for the feature. As she walked away, I found myself surrounded by wedding guests, suddenly eager to introduce themselves, compliment my dress, and mention that they followed me on Instagram. "My mother adores your content," said one woman approximately Madison's age. "She started dressing differently after following you. More confidently. Thank you for that." "I recognized you immediately," said another. "My book club discussed that profile the New Yorker did on you last month. So inspiring." Through the crowd, I saw Madison watching, her arms crossed defensively across her chest. Beside her, my son-in-law looked thoroughly uncomfortable, while his mother had mysteriously disappeared. I excused myself from the conversations and made my way to where my daughter stood. "Madison," I began, keeping my voice gentle. "You didn't tell me," she said immediately, her tone accusatory. "You didn't tell me about Vera Wang or Vogue." "Would it have mattered?" I asked honestly. "You've never shown interest in my work before." "Your work?" She laughed without humor. "Taking pictures of yourself is work now? Building a brand that reaches millions of women and partners with major fashion houses is work." "Yes," I replied evenly. "Creating content that makes women over 60 feel seen and valued is work. Negotiating contracts and managing partnerships is work. I'm sorry that doesn't fit your idea of what a woman my age should be doing, but this is who I am now. Who you are." Her voice rose slightly before she caught herself, glancing around at nearby guests. "Mom, this is also undignified. Chasing fame at your age, competing with girls a third of your age for attention. Dad would have been mortified." The mention of Robert hit me hard, but I stood my ground. "Your father always believed I had an eye for fashion. He always regretted that I gave up my dreams of design school to raise our family. He would have been proud to see me finally pursuing that passion, even later in life." "This isn't about fashion," Madison insisted. "It's about attention. It's about refusing to act your age." "And how exactly should I act my age, Madison? Should I disappear? Should I shrink myself to make you more comfortable?" Should I apologize for finding success and purpose after your father died instead of withering away in that empty house? Her eyes widened at my direct challenge. Before she could respond, Sophia appeared beside us, radiant in her wedding gown. Grandma, the photographer wants some family pictures, and I absolutely need you and that amazing dress in them, she said, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the tension between her mother and me. As I moved to follow Sophia, Madison caught my wrist. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "You're right," I agreed. "It's just beginning." The rest of the reception passed in a blur of contradictions. I was simultaneously a celebrity and an outcast, sought after by guests but avoided by my immediate family. Madison maintained a cool distance, while Peter, who had witnessed the entire scene, seemed unsure how to process this new understanding of his mother's life. Emma stayed close, periodically checking on me and documenting select moments for the agreed-upon social media coverage. By the end of the night, my Instagram post featuring the dress had accumulated over 200,000 likes and thousands of comments celebrating both the design and the occasion. It was nearly midnight when I returned to my hotel room, exhausted but oddly energized. I kicked off my shoes and sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through messages from followers and industry connections, reacting to the Vera Wang revelation. A text from Sophia popped up. "You were the second most beautiful woman there tonight, Grandma. After me, obviously. Love you and your fabulous dress. Thank you for making my wedding even more special." Tears pricked my eyes. At least one member of my family saw my success as something to celebrate rather than criticize. I was about to prepare for bed when there was a knock at my door. Opening it, I found Madison standing in the hallway, still in her burgundy dress, but with her hair now falling loose around her shoulders. "May I come in?" she asked stiffly. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. She remained standing, her body language closed as she surveyed the room. Noticing the professional camera equipment, the laptop open to my content management system, the notebook filled with campaign notes. "How much?" she finally asked. "Excuse me?" "The Vera Wang thing. How much did they pay you?" I hesitated, then decided on honesty. The full campaign is a 6-figure contract. The dress alone was valued at $15,000. Madison's jaw literally dropped. 6 figures? For wearing clothes and posting pictures? For lending my image and influence to a major designer's campaign, yes, I corrected. For representing women over 60 in an industry that has historically ignored them. She sank into the desk chair, looking genuinely bewildered. "I don't understand any of this. 3 years ago you were a retired librarian living in Vermont. Now you're, what, an influencer, a model, at 64? I'm exactly who I always was, Madison. I just finally gave myself permission to pursue the interests I set aside to be the mother and wife I thought I needed to be." I sat on the edge of the bed, facing her. "Your father's death taught me that life is too short to keep waiting for permission to exist on my own terms." "But why didn't you tell us? Really tell us what was happening?" I laughed softly. "I tried. Both you and Peter made it clear you thought it was just a silly hobby, something to keep me busy in my declining years." She had the grace to look embarrassed. "We were worried about you. After Dad died, you seemed so lost." I was. But instead of crumbling, I rebuilt. I created something meaningful, not just for me, but for thousands of women who have been told their relevance expired along with their youth. Madison was quiet for a long moment. "Some of my friends' mothers follow you," she finally admitted. "They've mentioned it before, but I never connected that Style with Elaine was actually you. Did you ever look at my account even once?" She shook her head. I thought it would be embarrassing. Middle-aged outfit posts and inspirational quotes. "Oh, maybe it's time you did," I suggested, opening my Instagram profile on my phone and handing it to her. "See for yourself what your embarrassing mother has been up to." Reluctantly, she took the phone and began scrolling. I watched her expression shift from skepticism to surprise as she took in the professional quality of the content, the engagement numbers, the partnerships with recognizable brands. She paused on a video of me speaking on a panel at a digital marketing conference, another of me interviewing a renowned fashion photographer. "You did a TED Talk?" she asked incredulously, looking up from the screen. "TEDx Boston, yes. Reinvention has no expiration date. It has over 3 million views now." She continued scrolling in silence, eventually landing on a post from 6 months earlier, A side-by-side comparison of me at 21 in front of that vintage clothing store and me at 64 in a modern interpretation of the same outfit. "I remember this picture," she said quietly. "It was in that old album. You wanted to be a designer back then, didn't you? Before you met Dad." "I did. I had been accepted to Parsons but couldn't afford to go. You never told us that. There were a lot of things I never told you children. Parents often hide their sacrifices and unfulfilled dreams. We don't want our children to feel like burdens." Madison handed the phone back, her expression unreadable. "So now what? You're a fashion icon at retirement age?" "Now I continue building what I've started. Next month I'm launching a capsule collection with Nordstrom designed specifically for women over 50. The month after that, I'm publishing a style guide. In the fall, I'm teaching a course at Boston University on digital entrepreneurship for women in midlife and beyond." "You're teaching a college course?" The disbelief was back in her voice. "Yes, Madison. It turns out that creating a 7-figure business from nothing in your 60s qualifies you to speak about entrepreneurship." I couldn't keep the edge from my tone. "You don't have to understand or approve of my choices, but I would appreciate if you could at least respect that they are mine to make." She stood abruptly. "I should get back to my room. It's late." "Madison," I called as she reached for the door. "I'm still your mother. That hasn't changed. But I'm also more than that now. I hope someday you can see that as something to celebrate rather than criticize." She paused, her back to me. "Good night, Mom," she said, and then she was gone. I sat alone in the quiet hotel room, emotions churning. The wedding had not gone as I'd imagined. Neither the humiliation nor the vindication had been part of my plan. All I'd wanted was to honor Sophia's day while fulfilling my professional obligations. Instead, years of tension with Madison had boiled over in a public setting. The next morning, I had breakfast with Emma and Sophia before checking out of the hotel. Neither mentioned the previous night's drama directly, though Sophia did say, "Mom will come around eventually, Grandma. She just doesn't like when things don't fit her neat categories, and you definitely don't fit any category." I hugged them both goodbye, promising to see them soon, then headed for the airport. I had a meeting in New York the following day with potential investors for the digital platform I was developing, an educational resource for women over 50 looking to build online businesses. 3 days later, I received a text from Peter. "Just saw the Vogue feature. The dress looked great, Mom." It wasn't an apology or even particularly effusive praise, but coming from my perpetually detached son, it felt significant. A week passed before I heard from Madison. Her name appearing on my phone screen still triggered a complex mix of hope and apprehension. "Mom," she began without preamble when I answered, "I've been thinking about our conversation after the wedding." "Oh?" I kept my tone neutral. "I looked you up. I mean, really looked you up. Not just your Instagram, but the articles, the interviews, the YouTube videos. There's a lot." "There is," I agreed. "I read that profile in time where you talked about how becoming widowed made you invisible, both to society and to your family." Her voice caught slightly. "Was that true? Did Peter and I make you feel invisible?" I sighed, choosing my words carefully. "After your father died, both of you treated me like I was suddenly fragile and incomplete, like I was just waiting to die myself. It was well-intentioned, but yes, it made me feel unseen." The line was quiet for so long I wondered if she'd hung up. "I'm sorry," she finally said, the words sounding difficult. "I didn't realize. I was so focused on making sure you were okay financially and practically that I never considered you might want more than just existence. Most people want purpose, Madison. That doesn't change with age. I understand that now." She paused. "The reason I'm calling, I'm in Boston next week for a conference. I thought maybe we could have dinner. Maybe you could tell me more about this capsule collection you're designing." It was an olive branch, small, but significant. "I'd like that," I told her. The dinner was awkward at first, both of us carefully navigating around years of misunderstanding. But as the evening progressed, I found myself sharing details about my business that I'd never thought would interest her, the challenges of negotiating contracts, the strategy behind content planning, the unexpected emotional impact of hearing from women who felt represented in my work. To my surprise, Madison listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions. As a hospital administrator, she understood more about business operations than I'd given her credit for. By the end of the meal, she was offering genuinely helpful suggestions about scalability and team management. "You know," she said as we waited for the check, "I always thought your Instagram thing was just, I don't know, vanity, a refusal to accept aging gracefully. But it's not that at all, is it? It's actually a business, a movement even. It's both," I admitted. "It is about refusing to become invisible just because I've passed some arbitrary age threshold. But it's also about creating something valuable, something that helps other women refuse that invisibility too." She nodded slowly. "I think I get it now." Then, with a small smile, "Dad really would have been proud, Mom. He always said you had more creativity than you knew what to do with." That night, I received a notification that Madison had followed my Instagram account. The next day, she shared one of my posts to her own modest following, with a caption that read, "My mom, reinventing what's possible at every age. Maybe it's time we all reconsidered our limitations." It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a beginning. In the months that followed, our relationship gradually transformed. Madison attended the launch party for my Nordstrom collection, bringing along friends who were already followers. Peter flew in from Seattle for my book signing, awkwardly proud as he watched a line of women wait for my autograph. Even his wife, who had always been politely disinterested in me, asked thoughtful questions about how I managed the business side of my brand. The most significant change, though, was in how they spoke about me to others. No more dismissive references to my internet thing, or concerned glances when I mentioned campaign deadlines. Instead, I overheard Madison at a family gathering explaining to a cousin, "Mom's built this incredible platform for women over 60. She's been featured in Vogue 3 times this year, and just signed a development deal for a potential television show." The pride in her voice was unmistakable. 2 years after Sophia's wedding, 5 years into my journey as Style with Elaine, I received the CFDA Influencer Award, becoming the oldest recipient in the category's history. As I stood at the podium in a gown I had co-designed, looking out at an audience filled with fashion industry luminaries, I spotted my family in the front row. Madison, Peter, Emma, Sophia, all of them beaming up at me. 5 years ago, I was a retired librarian and recent widow, convinced that my life's most meaningful chapters were behind me, I told the audience. Today, I stand before you as living proof that reinvention has no expiration date. That visibility, creativity, and purpose are not exclusive to youth. I looked directly at Madison as I continued. To my children, who have learned to see their mother as a woman with dreams beyond parenthood, thank you for growing with me, even when that growth was uncomfortable. To my grandchildren, who never doubted that Grandma could become something unexpected, your belief was a foundation I built upon. Later, at the after-party, Madison found me chatting with a group of fashion editors. She waited patiently until I could step away, then hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see you, Mom," she whispered. "Really see you. We got here eventually," I replied, returning her embrace. That's what matters. That night, as I posted about the award on Instagram to my now 3 million followers, I included a family photo from the event. The caption read, "Success means nothing without people to share it with." Grateful that my journey from invisible to influential included the greatest reward of all, being truly seen by those I love most. The post received over 500,000 likes overnight, but the comment that mattered most came from Madison. "We see you now, Mom, and you're magnificent." Looking back on that wedding day, the humiliation, the revelation, the beginning of a healing process, I realized that the designer dress wasn't really what made everyone shut up. It was the undeniable evidence that I had refused to accept the limitations others had placed on me because of my age, that I had created value and meaning on my own terms, despite every dismissal and doubt. The sapphire Vera Wang gown hangs in a special place in my closet now. I don't wear it anymore, but I look at it sometimes as a reminder. It's never too late to become who you might have been, to reclaim dreams deferred, to demand visibility in a world determined to look past you. At 66, I'm just getting started. If you've stayed with me through this story, perhaps you're searching for your own beginning disguised as an ending. Perhaps you too have felt invisible, underestimated, dismissed because of your age, your gender, your circumstances. If so, I hope my journey reminds you that purpose and reinvention are not privileges reserved for the young. They are birthright of every human at every stage of life. Our channel is dedicated to sharing stories like mine, stories of vindication, of second acts, of justice served through unexpected means. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, a milestone that will help us reach even more people who need to hear these messages of hope and possibility. If you found value in my story today, please consider subscribing. Your support means everything to creators like us who believe in the power of these narratives to change lives. Because sometimes, the most powerful form of justice is simply refusing to disappear when others have decided your time has passed. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Style with Elaine, and I'll see you in the next video.